What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to another video with you, man, Measureaholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 and our grand finale for the Britanni campaign for the Age of Justinian mod in Total War Attila. That's right, today will be our last episode in this campaign. I could have dragged it out for a lot longer if I wanted to, but we've mostly accomplished what we wanted. But I'm hoping that we can finish our final accomplishment in this video, which is taking Rome itself. Now, first off, I want to look at our diplomacy real quick, just to show you the current situation. Basically, the Austrasia and the Burgundian factions, basically the two biggest Frankish kingdoms there are right now, are our major allies, and they've proven to be very useful for us in keeping our southern borders safe. Of course, we still have the Scotty or the Irish faction in the west as our client state, and they seem to like us. However, we'll see just how much they do not like us later on. And then we have the Alt-Clut faction in the north of Britain, which were having a non-aggression pact with us previously, but now they've cancelled it and are refusing to continue. But in the meantime, the First Legion, led by our heir Gaius Constantinus, is now returning from wiping out the Vikings, at least the majority of them. He went through and sacked all of their major settlements and razed them to the ground, and now they should not be raiding our shores any longer, which is of course very good news. It took quite a few months for him to return home to Corinian, but he will return safely and soundly, and now it is time for him to recruit a lot more troops into the First Legion. We've been we've been researching, I should say, our technology to try and get some better Roman units, so we now have a upper level, almost like a solid mid-tier swordsman available to us. However, just as Gaius returns, the Alt-Clut turns on us completely and ends up declaring war on us instantly without any warning whatsoever. We even still had trade relations with them, but they're forgoing that, and they are instantly charging at us in the middle of winter, though. So their armies that they have sent against us at Eboracum and Glasgowium are both going to be suffering through attrition, and we do have garrisons in addition to generals with a small amount of units with them in each of those cities, so I'm fairly confident we'll be able to hold out against them. However, their hometown has a massive garrison itself. But after a few months and the winter passes, they basically returned north and focused on Glasgowium. And so while their armies were away, we're actually going to go ahead and attack their capital, and if we could take it, we can subjugate them and basically hold them to ransom and force peace terms on them. And here we are on the battlefield. We have one of our generals, just a generic general, leading the charge this time. He has his more higher level spearmen that we've always had access to. Very good solid spearmen. They have quite good armor underneath their tunics. However, here is our brand new swordsman unit that's available to us. They're basically a solid mid-tier unit. They have the same shields and swords that our regular Civi Roman units have been using, but they do have chainmail now, and they're quite heavily armored and disciplined, so they will definitely come in handy later on. Meanwhile, the enemy garrison is holding pretty much inside the city. We do have archers that will be engaging their right-hand flank, which has basically a large rock outcropping with a plateau and a tower and a lot of enemy units stationed on there in a defensive position. So we'll be bombarding them with arrows. Unfortunately, setting things alight takes a very long time in this mod, so I ended up just foregoing the flaming arrows and using just regular shots, and we'll instead focus on the enemy unit shortly. But it at least looks pretty awesome, and I love the shaky camera effect. But we charged up, and then we instantly entered into a shield wall to receive the charge of the enemy. As soon as we got on the plateau, they tried to push us off, but I sent up 2 lines of units, and then we'll be sending in more reinforcements shortly, along with, of course, continued arrow fire. Back towards the center of town, it is a massive, chaotic mess. The melee is incredibly disorganized and, like I said, just chaotic and random. Our swordsmen are getting involved along with our cavalry, as are theirs. And then we send in the second battle line now, and this will be a little bit more disciplined, and they will clean up the last of the remaining units here who are trying to hold out against us. They do have skirmishers in the background now, and even though the majority of their melee troops have been dealt with, we will have to chase them down. But thankfully we have reinforcements arrive as well, We have one large army and a small army with some archers and some axemen, and they are now arriving in the town itself right now. The axemen will focus on taking the citadel, while our archers provide fire support for the main battle line. There's probably a fair bit of friendly fire happening due to just how chaotic the battlefield is, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. The main bottom line is that we take this town from them. And so far it's looking like we will. We've pushed the enemy off this small plateau that they had, and we're now charging in to get some rear charges into the main battle line. I know I'm showing you guys a lot of close-ups here, and it's probably hard to follow what is happening, but basically the enemy troops who are running away are the enemy. And off goes our cavalry to chase down their skirmishers who are now abandoning the town. And here is their general, of course, as always, hiding up in the citadel, refusing to come down and fight with their men. The cowards they are will rout very shortly, and our axemen will chase down the general of the garrison. And there we have it. We take the Outclut settlement from them. Here are these stats if you do wish to see them. We lost about 800 men for the exchange of killing 2,000 men, which is definitely worth it in my opinion. Our brand new swordsmen did very well. They got high kills and low death ratios, so that's very handy. That shows that their new armor will definitely prove to be useful in the long run. But our civis units that we've been using, the Roman basically levy swordsmen, got smashed, and so I'm going to be trying to get them out of our armies as time goes on. But there we go, we subjugate them to stop them from attacking Glasgowium. That basically means that they're now under our rule, or under our I guess tributary status, or they are a tributary of ours. But in the meantime though, this is our endgame goal here, Rome. Now that we have established more diplomatic ties in Gaul with the Franks and whatnot, they have allies who are invading Italy itself, and they're doing very, very well. And so since this is going to be our last goal, taking Roma itself, restoring pagan rule to the capital, Gaius, of course, cannot stand for having our allies get there before him. So after a few months had passed since the Outclut fiasco, he has reorganized his army, recruited some brand new troops, and the First Legion will now be marching by land down to the homeland of Rome. That's right, they have a very long march ahead of them. It might even take them a full year, if not more, but it'll be worth it in the end, hopefully. We shall see. But he has a very solid army at his disposal, but he is not relying very much on cavalry, and we'll just see how that comes into play later on. In the meantime, the 2nd Legion, Legio II Rexia, Iberia, will be marching down into Gaul as well. The main thinking of that is that it'll be a support legion, possibly a legion to go and take Constantinople. But that's basically a secondary objective. I'm not really sure on how strong the Romans, or the Eastern Romans we should call them, will be. But I wanted to send the 2nd Legion regardless. But of course, after just a few months under our rule, the Outclut rebel and declare war on us. I know I should have probably just occupied it the first time, but I really didn't want to have to deal with their massive stacks. This time though, it will be different because they don't have as many troops at their disposal. They've disbanded them, and they lost a lot of them to us in the earlier wars. So while it is annoying, it shouldn't be too much of a threat. We'll be able to contain it pretty easily in my opinion. The march through Gaul continues. However, as the 2nd Legion arrives at the Alps, they are arriving in the middle of winter, and as such they will take massive attrition going through the mountains. But it doesn't matter. Gaius is far too busy wanting to march on Rome to worry about having any losses to attrition, and so the 2nd Legion is ordered to continue. Meanwhile though, the 1st Legion has arrived in Italy and is very close to Rome. However, because Fiorentina, a small town here owned by Bavaria, is owned by them and not by us, we will have to waste a lot of time crossing that river. But once we get across, then we should have a straight shot to Rome. However, they do have a large army at Ravenna, and we don't know the quality of their troops yet. But again, a few months pass. The 1st Legion is getting into position. The 2nd Legion is now getting into the area of Venetia, and we offer our allies to join their war against Rome and its tributaries in exchange for just a little bit of money to help us keep going, because we are kind of struggling with money. We are very much using it to recruit a lot of mercenary units. However, in this surprise war that we've declared on the Romans, we're kind of getting screwed over here. You can see the first legion was ready to come in and take the capital, but unfortunately there was just a little bit of red there. Basically, we were slightly out of action points somehow. I don't know how, but we were. And then after I ended the turn there, after the first legion marched on Rome, they responded by sending over 6,000 Romans against us. This is very terrible. They're looking like they actually have some very solid troops, and they have a crap ton of cavalry. Gaius tries to fall back and form up a more defensible position. However, it's just not good enough. And then now he'll be facing about 5,000 Romans with his force. So this could be Gaius' last stand. And here we are on a very rough battlefield. Almost as always, I feel like throughout this entire campaign, we've had bad battle maps for us. We have a slight slope that we'll be on top of after I rush the army up to try and be in a defendable position, but a lot of our troops will be tired from that run, and it won't really make all that much of a difference. The enemy has a massive amount of cavalry. You could see the left wing has probably over 1,000 cavalry on its own. The right wing is being reinforced by more cavalry. The cav is really where they're going to shine, and we're going to try and play purely defensively. And while I'm trying to reorganize our second battle line into defensive positions on our flanks, the entire enemy army goes into a massive rush against us. And you can see it's almost like a wave that is coming in, a tsunami is coming in to crash against our troops. And our right hand flank here with all the enemy cav is going to get pounded. I try to redirect my cav and spearmen to get involved in melee with the enemy very quickly. In addition, we also have some archers on the left and right hand flanks to try and help out. Our left hand flank though basically is just relying on swordsmen and axemen. It's a little bit less I guess dominated by the enemy cav, but they will still be there and they will still be involved. And they have a lot of skirmishes. Basically, the enemy army has everything that we don't want to deal with in an army. We really were not prepared for this. The overconfidence that Gaius has obtained after vanquishing the Vikings is definitely showing here, and now he's definitely out of his depth, and it's looking very rough. Our right hand flank is getting overwhelmed by the enemy cavalry extremely quickly. They're even doing rear charges into our archers and whatnot right now. Our cav is almost being wiped out. Our spearmen are struggling. On our left hand flank though, we're doing very, very well considering the situation. We're actually routing some of the enemy cavalry, and the infantry that we're engaging with seem to be of slightly lower quality than our own men, especially our axemen. So on our left hand flank we're doing good, but on the right the enemy cav is just giving us constant rear charges and is just decimating us, and even Gaius himself is now having to get involved in the fighting. We've lost too many men to routing and archer fire right now, so he has to get in and try and hold the main battle line. But again, on the left, things are looking very, very promising, so we just need to try and wrap up the left hand side of the enemy army as quickly as possible before we lose our right and therefore our center. I'm redirecting troops to the right hand flank to try and hold them. You can see our archers are getting engaged in pure melee now. They're also routing very, very quickly. We have more troops wavering across the entire front line now. It's looking extremely tight. Gaius has been involved in the fighting for a while now, so he is unable to try and get in some flanking charges. And speaking of flanking charges, the enemy gets a devastating charge on some of our archers in the rear, but thankfully they won't rout just yet, but they are hanging on by a thread. Our left hand flank is full of our troops charging forward now. I'm really trying to micro a lot of rear charges coming in, which is why this this battle has almost no close-ups in it. We're basically just microing the entire time. This is a really tight fight. The enemy has overwhelming odds against us, and now they also have axemen getting involved against our swordsmen. And axes usually beat swordsmen at least the majority of the time, depending on how much armor they have, but it's looking really rough. The left hand flank managed to wrap around the enemy basically entirely now. We're actually rear charging into the center. However, Gaius is on his own on the right. Our entire right wing is now retreated, and now the enemy cav is basically charging into our General Gaius along with our center. So they're basically wrapping us up way faster than what we can wrap them up. And our troops that were outflanking them were getting hit by archer fire. And as you can see here, our entire army is wavering now. Gaius is surrounded by enemy cav and soldiers. He's fighting down to the last man. But the rest of his army is basically on the verge of breaking. They're retreating en masse. And the ones who aren't retreating are getting cut down. So you can't really blame them for retreating at this point. If you look at the battlefield, there's thousands that litter the field dead. Many more wounded and many more slaughtering our own. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we actually lose the battle. And as such, we lose Gaius Constantinus the Great, the conqueror of the Vikings. He's gone. That's it. We've now lost our heir. The First Legion is entirely obliterated, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how it happened. I just marched the First Legion a little bit too deep, a little bit too fast. We weren't really prepared. We were rushing it. We were very overconfident. And as such, Gaius has paid the ultimate price. Gaius Constantinus, the heir to Great Britanni Kingdom, the restorer of the old empire, or at least he should have been, is now gone. And that gives us quite a few problems. Obviously, number one, the First Legion is now gone. We've just lost an entire legion, which is massive to us. Thankfully, though, we do have a second legion that is coming down. The Legio Rexia Iberia will be not too far behind. But as you can see, our family tree is pathetic. Gaius left us with nothing but one illegitimate daughter and no sons at all. Lucius Sartorius has only had one son, who is now dead, and he's now 82 years old. Things are looking incredibly rough for the kingdom of the Britanni. But moving forward, though, back up in the north, the Alt-Clut faction is now attacking Glasgowium. I did fight the battle manually, but I won't bother showing you. It was a fairly easy defense, even though we had equal numbers. We managed to use the city walls to hold out fairly easy, although we did lose 1,000 men, so it got a little dicey there for me, but it's definitely not worth showing you, not when we have so much more to cover in this. Moving forward, though, after we defeated the Alt-Clut armies that came to Glasgowium, we will now be marching forward with a lot of mercenaries by a general of the name of Maximinius. He is a very promising general so far, 3-star, and he's held off Glasgowium, or held on to Glasgowium very successfully now, without any issues. So he'll probably be our new up-and-coming general for the meantime, and hopefully he will be the restorer of peace in the north. And as such, we do get peace with the Alt-Clut, but it is very temporary. I had to get peace just so I could focus on taking Roma. I didn't want to have to recall the Second Legion, but then after we get peace with the Alt-Clut, the Scotty faction, or the Irish, are now rebelling against us. They were a client state of ours. They see what the Alt-Clut did and how nearly they managed to take settlements from us, and now the Irish fancy themselves a chance at independence. Of course, we can't stand for this, but in the meantime, we are going to have to suffer some losses, and instantly they'll be attacking Saguntium. They'll be sacking the settlement, and then they will sack it and occupy it again. Very, very bad start. They're basically getting a foothold into northern Wales, which is very bad because it leaves them open to expand in any direction in Britain. They can go north towards Aboricum, or they could head south to Longdinium. But of course, we couldn't allow that, and Maximinius is charged with invading Ireland. In the meantime, he has an entire legion almost made up entirely of mercenaries. But that's still okay. It's not the end of the world, and we've been using mercenaries in our armies for a while now. In the meantime, though, we are sending up a small garrison from the south to retake Saguntium. The Irish barely had any garrison in there whatsoever, so we'll just auto-resolve that away. And the losses that we suffered there will be made up for in plenty very shortly. But Saguntium is now back under our control. We will just occupy it peacefully. We of course don't want to damage our own people. But in the meantime, Dublin now must answer for the betrayal. The Irish have stabbed us in the back, and Britannia cannot stand for it. So as such, we will now be sending in General Maximinius with the Jacobite Legion. And here he is on the battlefield, giving a speech before the city of Dublin. He has a very massive army, a very diverse army though. He has a lot of mercenaries involved. He has quite a bit of cavalry as well. And this will be a very widespread battlefield to start off with, so we'll be sending Cav and Axemen along the left-hand flank down here to attack the center and the left side of town. But back towards the right-hand flank, which we'll see in a moment, is where the main battle will occur. We are marching ahead fairly slowly. The enemy army didn't have too many skirmishers, although the arrow towers will be a big pain. But here in the center, or more to the right-hand side, I guess, we will be sending forth a lot of axemen to charge into the main battle line. But in the meantime, the enemy is receiving reinforcements via the sea, so we will have to divert our entire second battle line to dealing with that on the beaches. In the meantime, though, we charge down the middle of the streets. The right-hand flank holds the majority of their units inside the town. Back towards the center over here, we'll also be charging in, and then on the left-hand flank, far left-hand flank, we'll be sending units outside to try and outflank them. But they only have a couple units here, nothing too crazy. It should be fairly easy for our people to outflank them and get some nice solid recharges in. But meanwhile, back on the far right, along the beaches, the Irish are basically having a little mini D-Day in Ireland, in Dublin, I should say. They're getting off their boats, and as soon as they're getting off their boats, they're getting cut down by our own men. We have cavalry getting involved to try and kill the enemy skirmisher units that are getting off the boats. But then we also have our entire second line of infantry getting involved. And the fighting will last for quite a while, and we will take some casualties, and some of our units will retreat. However, thankfully, we do have a lot of cav. We have about 4 units, I think, which is a lot for our armies. And even though they're fairly light, cavalry and Attila are just insanely OP. They're incredible. And so you keep recharging them just a few times is enough to wipe out a mid-tier to high-tier unit, really. And we'll be seeing that here shortly. Several minutes pass, and with that, the enemy that landed on the beaches gets entirely repulsed, and our cavalry will now chase them down and slaughter them. The Irish D-Day has failed, but in the meantime, we will be continuing our assault on Dublin and the town itself. But yeah, our cavalry really made the difference, and they were able to plug up any holes that formed in our defense. So I'm definitely getting used to having more cav in my armies now. Even in my Rome 2 campaign, I gotta start using them a bit more. But back here on the right hand side of the town, we are still grinding through them, although at this point our left hand flank managed to penetrate down one of the streets, and now we are rear charging into the massive blob of enemies here. So basically they are entirely surrounded with a major contingent of units that is stopping us from entering Dublin. We are taking out the enemy towers now, which would be very helpful. They've been a constant thorn in our side, although they aren't as powerful in Vanilla Attila, or in Age of Justinian mod, I should say, as they are in Vanilla Attila. Vanilla Attila is just insane. But with that recharge into that big blob, we end up routing the majority of the units, and now back up here on the cliff, however, the King of the Irish is hiding, of course, back up in his citadel, or where you'd think you'd have a citadel, but it's basically just a chief's hall on top of a hill. He's commanding a cavalry bodyguard. It is basically a light cav bodyguard, though. It's pretty much not really much of a threat to us. And as such, we will now charge up with a bunch of our axemen and basically just swarm the king until he's killed here shortly. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Dublin is taken. The Irish have paid for their treachery. The green jewel of the British Isles is now ours. And there they are wiped out. We will, of course, make sure that the city is put to the torch. No other act would be appropriate to deal with such treachery. We've been good friends with them for quite a while since we made them a client state, and now they have to suffer the consequences. So all of Ireland gets put to the torch here, with this very incredible graphic you get to see of the entire island getting burned down. Might be a little bit extreme, but I mean, we're Romans, right? We gotta do things the most extreme way. Meanwhile, though, after a few months have passed, the Second Legion is now marching on Rome itself. They have been re-diverted from their Constantinople expedition, and as such, the Second Legion now marches on Rome, the city. Let's do it. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the city of Rome, the place that so many of our people have called home, or at least so many of the upper class. The lower class probably couldn't care less, but they will go where the money is. And although Rome is a fairly rich city, it is still a city that is pretty friggin' worn down. You can see a lot of the buildings in the distance and in the background are looking very raggedy, very worn down. They have a lot of their buildings destroyed, although a lot of that is attributed to our siege. The Second Legion was able to siege Roma for a few months before even assaulting, so that's why we had so much siege equipment. I'm not sure what happened to the Roman armies that were in the area. They seem to have been diverted by the Bavarians and the other Frankish kingdoms that had sent armies down here, so that was very helpful. And as such, we will abuse that and definitely try to assault the city ourselves and take it before our allies can. Now, we have some crossbowmen at the front of the army, although they won't play a major part in this battle. And we do have some archers pummeling the enemy, but we do have a bit of a surprise. Here, you can see we have our king, Lucius Artorius, getting involved in the fighting. That's right, the 82-year-old king has traveled all the way in secret, all across Gaul, all down to this heart of Italy, the heart of the Roman Empire. He will be leading the restoration himself. I initially had a different general assigned to the army, but I figured it would be entirely appropriate to bring in King Lucius Artorius. He did so well for us early on in the campaign, and he has just lost his son, so he is grief-stricken. However, he would definitely want to be here to witness this proud moment of the Britanni, the rightful leaders of Rome, retaking the capital and restoring the Roman Empire. At least that is the plan. But the plan's going quite well so far. The right-hand side of the enemy wall is entirely ungarrisoned. The gates themselves were overrun very easily, and as such we were able to send in our cavalry and start recharging the enemy. With those recharges, the enemy decent units that they did have around the gate basically rout en masse, and the gate is taken quite easily. Although we do take a few casualties, at this point it doesn't matter. We're taking Rome, ladies and gentlemen. That is a big deal. And so King Lucius will definitely pay any price necessary for taking it. Hell, he even paid the price of losing his only son and heir to the kingdom in order to take Rome. And so now he is charging into the city at the head of his army, straight down the street towards the Colosseum itself, tears swelling in his eyes as he sees the old jewel, the Colosseum of Rome. And we have the Imperial Palace off to the right, which is where the garrison captain is hiding out. Of course, it's not the Roman Emperor himself. He would be in Constantinople. But they do charge out, and they meet us in the shade, in the shadow of the Colosseum. And what better poetic way to end this campaign than fighting just outside the Colosseum of Rome, the place where we've been wanting to return to this entire time, been wanting to reconquer the heart of the old empire. We could continue the campaign and continue restoring the old empire, which might be fun, but to be honest, I'm wanting to try some different series for the channel, and this Britanni campaign was basically a good insight into a Total War Attila playthrough. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, Rome is now ours. King Lucius leads in the final charge of the campaign into the rear of the enemy. They rout en masse and they are kicked out of the city, hopefully forever. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final episode. I do sincerely hope you enjoyed this campaign. I would almost like to continue playing it, but there are other campaigns that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So I'll be trying to fill up this second campaign slot with something very interesting. I don't have anything definite just yet, so feel free to leave comments down below. I am debating, generally speaking, on perhaps looking at the medieval mods for Total War Attila, but I'm also very intrigued by the recent update to Imperator Rome, and I'm really thinking my style of providing a let's play for you to watch might be a lot of fun and a lot of entertainment for you all in Imperator Rome, but I'm not too sure yet. Please leave your comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this campaign. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.